everybody, it's Mark here again with ExoticCar PlayPlace. And I hope you watched my last video on why you should go out and buy one right now, an E60 of course. And my previous video to that, of course, being how to activate launch control. That was also a fun one to film too. Now this one here really is short. I've had questions about how do you park these cars? How do you park it? How do you engage park in this one? Before we get started there, please ensure you subscribe, like, comment to my channel. I really appreciate it, everybody. That's hats off to all you guys that have followed me to date and keep following me and watching my videos. I really love that, guys. Love the following, love the friendship out there. Some people, you know, I'm forming friendships. It's great. I really appreciate that. So again, thanks everybody for following. Moving right along. I've had people ask me, how do you park the E60 M5? Like, how does it actually park? Do you have an emergency brake or what? Well, let's start by saying, I mean, this is departed from, you know, the old e-brake from many years ago. I mean, you look at the old ones, you know, really ratchety sounding, ugly kind of an e-brake from, you know, say, a Golf, for example. You know, a late 90s Golf. And then you move into what we have here in the E60 M5. And we have more of a conventional, it's quite a pretty handbrake. But it's good because a handbrake is very desirable by today's standards. Why do I say that? Well, because a lot of the new BMWs are going to the electronic emergency brake. Now that all sounds well and good until your battery dies or you can't move the car, like a car won't start. If the car doesn't start, you can't release that brake, you can't move the car. How do you push the car to put it onto a tow truck? You've got to have a manual way to release that. Well, it becomes a very, very insane way to activate or deactivate your park brake. So the E60 M5 is the last of the M5s that have more of a conventional e-brake setup. So you can enjoy those little e-brake pulls when you're spinning and pulling loops. But more importantly, you know, when you're parking, it's just easier to use the e-brake like this than the electronic e-brake. Yeah, it could sometimes need adjustment. They stretch, the cables stretch and they wear. But you know what? At least you know what you've got. It's old trusty. The new stuff, I have it in the X5 and I've had a lot of problems with faults and stuff like that. So you get a lot of kind of different electronic faults with that. I'm not in love with the electronic e-brakes. Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's the new wave, I'm sure, in BMW. But the E60 here that I'm driving is the last version of the M5 that actually has the old school e-brake. Now moving right along. So that's how I generally park the car. Because an E60 M5 essentially it's a manual transmission. It's an automated manual. So yeah, you're pulling the levers. Yeah, there's no third pedal, but you are activating essentially a dry clutch. And that's all done through an actuator that basically moves that clutch in and out as you direct through your commands. Basically as a manual transmission. Often on flat ground, I park with just the e-brake. Now that being said, if you're parking on a hill, what I find, this car is quite heavy. So sometimes the e-brake doesn't quite cut it if you're on a real steep hill. And as a matter of fact, when you set just the e-brake and you turn the car off, it gives you a little warning that the car can move. And you'll see that little warning on the dashboard. What it's basically telling you is to park the car in gear. That is actually truly the way the car is supposed to be parked. You pick a gear, you turn the car off. Now, when I first got the car, that kind of threw me for a loop because when I tried that, I got kind of mixed up and I parked it in gear, then the car wouldn't start the next time and I got kind of stressed out thinking, uh-oh, what's wrong with this thing? Maybe there's a big bill coming. Again, that's always something in the back of your mind when you're driving an E60, unfortunately, but I thought maybe that was something going on. I pulled the manual out of the owner's manual and I had a look at it and I realized, no, there's actually a bit of a technique. So when you park it, you're actually supposed to park the car in gear. Then when you go to start the car, you throw it in neutral and then start it, because the car will not start in gear. It's, even though it has computers to kind of tell you, when it's in gear, like when you're driving and you pull up to a set of lights, it'll idle in gear, but it doesn't like to start in gear. So the idea behind that is really you want to put the car back in neutral before you start. Before you start the car, you have to have it back in neutral. So that's kind of the little trick to that. So again, keeping in mind, park it in gear. You can park it in first, you can park it in reverse. It seems to work both ways. But prior to starting it, you always want to shift it back over to neutral and press the start button, and off you go. That being said, like any good driving instructor, they're going to tell you that you probably want to park it in gear with the emergency brake on. They're all going to dictate that. But either or will work. And if you're not on a real steep hill, I don't worry as much about it. Like I said, I do use the e-brake for the most part, but you can park it in gear, and that's the way the book actually states it. So, you know what? Again, I can really appreciate the E60 M5 for some of these simplicities. Yeah, it's full of electronics that are very complex, but it's great that they still hung on to some of the old stuff, and I like it. And you know what? Again, this is the last version that actually retained the manual emergency brake. So everybody, I know the video is short. I hope it helped. For those that were struggling with the idea or the concept behind that, that's all I'm trying to do, is help you with that. So do park it in gear. Do use your e-brake when you're on a hill as well, in conjunction with, and keep on trucking. I hope you liked the video. Come back again and be sure to subscribe. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.